All right, the next question we're going to talk about and answer is, what are the theories of victimization? These are the theories that victimologists have prescribed involving victimization, and these theories of victimization shift the focus away from the criminal and onto the victim. And this shift is a critical one, for it emphasizes the role of the victim or the victim's circumstances as basically setting the stage for the victimization to occur. And there are a number of theories that try to explain these causes to victimization. So we have victim precipitation theory, lifestyle exposure theory, routine activities theory, and deviant places theory. We're going to start with the victim precipitation theory. Theories of precipitation, they examine the relationship between victims and criminals and assess the likelihood that the victim may, and I put this in parentheses, may, in some ways, including those that are blame-free, that they may have contributed to his or her own victimization. And this theory suggests that criminal violence may be encouraged by the active or passive behavior of the targets or the victims. Let's start with the active precipitation. This is where the victim provokes the offender, either by words, threats, or even they attack first. And I have a few examples of this. Let's say one example. A woman kills her husband due to a prolonged history of regular domestic violence. The victim is the husband in this case, and what happened? The victim provokes the offender. Here's another example. In the midst of a heated argument, the victim physically lashes out at the offender, causing him to shove or hit the victim so hard that he or she falls and is gravely injured. Another example, constant humiliation of an employee in public by an employer causes the employee to lash out, physically harm the employer. A drunken man engages in teasing a woman, chasing her, and eventually tries to get physical with her. In desperation, the woman reaches for a sharp object she can find and stabs the man. That's an example of active precipitation. A controversial point, however, about this particular theory is that, and this one's mentioned in the book, is the idea that women who are raped actively contributed in some way, either through provocative dress, a relationship, or a suggested consent of intimacy. Because of this viewpoint, this is the theory, because of this viewpoint, it's hard to convict an accused rapist who has had some form of relationship with the accused, or one that has been behaving suggestively or provocatively. But a great deal, since the 1970s, a great deal of the law has changed relative to rape, and things that aren't allowed or admissible in court anymore, those things about how she was dressed or how she was acting. But unfortunately, that myth still exists that surrounds this active precipitation, or that victims actively cause their victimization. Let's talk about passive precipitation. You can have it two ways. There's two ways to have passive precipitation, according to the theory. One is when the victim was first to act in a sequence of interactions that lead up to the criminal event, or the victim unconsciously exhibits behaviors or characteristics that instigate or encourage the attack. Job promotions, job status, successes, love interests, these types of things are examples of unconscious behavior and characteristics. Additionally, Political activists, minority groups, those of different sexual orientation, and other individuals pursuing alternative lifestyles. They may also find themselves as targets of violence due to the inadvertent threat they pose to certain individuals of power. For instance, let's go through a few examples. A woman who gets a promotion may become a victim of domestic violence of a jealous spouse or partner. The horrifying practice of lynching, the hate crime that was carried out by Americans against people of African origins due to racism. Another example, one employee is passed over for a promotion that is offered to a colleague, and this motivates him or her to physically harm or spread rumors about that person or that victim. Two men competing for the love of the same woman may indulge in antagonistic acts towards each other. The act of terrorism against a select community of people. In general, according to studies on victimology, victim-precipitated crimes are largely those crimes that involve these acts of terrorism, hate crimes, racial hatred, physical, sexual assaults. These tend to be spontaneous crimes and crimes of passion. They are very rarely ever premeditated or thought out or planned. And there is a case in the book, I'll let you read that as an example of the passive precipitation. Lifestyles. Lifestyle theory or lifestyle exposure theory, it's also called. It says that certain lifestyles, i.e. the way people live, favor victimization because they offer more opportunities for it. Lifestyles are composed of repetitive, patterned, regular, or recurrent events that people engage in on a regular basis or on an everyday basis. Because lifestyles are associated with exposure to people, places, and times with varying risks of victimization, they determine a person's vulnerability to criminal victimization. So simply stated, certain lifestyles favor victimization because they offer more opportunities for it. And there's many different ones. We are going to cover the 4 that are on the slide. The high-risk lifestyle, that one makes the most sense. Drug abusers, they sometimes share aspects of their lifestyle with strangers or acquaintances, and they may find themselves the target of theft or may even end up being arrested or a victim in some, assault type victim as a consequence of their lifestyle choice. Someone who goes out every night drinking and partying, possibly living on the streets. These are all examples of high-risk lifestyle that creates a high risk of victimization. Why is that? Because that's where the offenders are. They have similar lifestyles. An unemployed youth who drops out of school, they're more likely to associate with others who get them into trouble and may find themselves faced with victimization. Gang association, carrying weapons, selling drugs, it all increases one's risk of victimization. So I pose to you, what are some potentially high-risk activities that you can identify just in common life, everyday life? What about somebody working a late night shift in a high-crime area? Right, somebody works in a high-crime area, the night shift at a convenience store. Likely more at risk victimization than someone who's home sleeping. How about a person who routinely withdraws large sums of cash from the same ATM on a regular basis? They're more likely to be victimized than one who uses the bank teller or even one who varies their routine to the ATM. If somebody goes to the ATM to deposit, thousands of dollars every Monday night at 9 p.m., someone's going to figure out that routine. College lifestyle. Students who maintain a lifestyle of partying, drinking, using drugs, they're all at high risk of victimization. But there are also those who don't engage in those kinds of behavior, but are still victims They find themselves as victims. And the book notes, and I'm going to note here, sexual assault on campuses is at an extreme high. Most victims know who their attackers are, and most attacks occur while the victim is pursuing leisure activities, as simple as just jogging or being out for a walk. So college lifestyle increases risk of victimization. Having a criminal lifestyle, I allude to some of those under the high-risk lifestyles. You can still have a high-risk lifestyle, not be involved in criminal activities, but if you're involved in criminal lifestyle, you engage in criminal activity on a regular basis, you are at a high risk of being victimized. I know I've mentioned it, but if you're in the business of selling drugs as the enterprise, or you join a gang, you're more likely to be victimized than those who don't. Think about it as an example. If somebody steals money from a drug dealer, is the drug dealer going to call the police and say, "Hey, this person ripped me off"? No. What they might do is go out and hurt that person who stole, and then they are a victim. So if you engage in a criminal lifestyle, that increases the risk of being a victim. Our next theory is the deviant place theory. The deviant places theory is a spatially oriented perspective, which suggests that victimization occurs most frequently in socially disorganized, high crime areas, and that people become victims as a result of their exposure to those areas. And there is some overlap between the lifestyle theory and the deviant place theory. The deviant place theory states that an individual is more likely to become a victim or become the victim of a crime when exposed to dangerous areas. So, for example, a mugger is more likely to target a person walking alone after dark in a bad neighborhood. Lifestyle theory, the more frequently a person ventures into bad neighborhoods where violent crime is common, the greater risk of victimization. That's a lifestyle. So they kind of overlap. There's also some overlap between the deviant place theory and the socioeconomic approaches to victimization. Low-income households are more likely to be located in or near dangerous areas of town. And individuals from poor socioeconomic backgrounds are less capable of moving forward or moving away from these dangerous areas. So the deviant places theory depends entirely upon the ecological features associated with a given location. It's not personal characteristics of the people living there. So we're talking about the ecological features. That's the key to our deviant places theory. And I will note that in these deviant places under this theory, most have what's called, quote unquote, the honor code system, the informal code that may exist. And this only promotes victimization even more. And per the code, the basic gist, someone who is a victim of a crime, they are honored, bound to retaliate against their attacker. And you find these honor codes within gangs. They have a reputation they have to protect. They don't want to be vulnerable to future crimes, so they go out and victimize. Kind of like the example that I gave with the individual who steals from the drug dealer. The drug dealer's not going to call the police. They're going to honor the code. It's disrespect if you steal from me. So that is our third theory, the deviant place theory. And now we're going to talk about the routine activities. This is a little bit more involved, a little more lengthy information. This theory examines the interaction of kind of three different things happening. We have a motivated offender. It's the interaction between our motivated offenders, our capable guardians, and suitable targets. They all come together. And this is they use this as an explanation for crime and suggest that an individual's everyday activities contribute significantly to the likelihood of his or her criminal victimization. And in 1979, Cohen and Felsen, two victimologists, questioned why urban crime rates increased during the 1960s when the factors commonly thought to cause violent crime, such as poor economic conditions, had generally improved during this time. So they suggested that a crime should be thought of as an event that occurs at a specific location and time and involves specific people and or objects. They argued that crime events require three minimal elements to converge in time and space. Okay? That is, one, an offender who is prepared to commit the offense. Two, a suitable target, such as a human victim to be assaulted or a piece of property to be stolen. And three, the absence of a guardian capable of preventing the crime. Who might that be? The police, maybe neighbors, eyewitnesses, homeowners, people that are rightfully present who could stop it. The lack of any of these three elements, they claimed, would be sufficient to prevent a crime event from occurring. So drawing from human ecological theories, Cohen and Felsen suggested that structural changes in society routine activity patterns can influence crime rates by affecting the likelihood of the convergence in time and space of these three necessary elements. As the routine activities of people change, the likelihood of targets converging in time and space with motivated offenders without guardians also changes. So in other words, opportunities for crime and in turn crime patterns are all a function of routine activity patterns in society. So an offender may routinely walk through specific neighborhoods looking for homes that appear as easy targets for burglary or into buildings in a commercial area to seek opportunities for theft. Because in many families, all adults work, homes are often unoccupied during the day, which can become suitable targets for burglary. Neighborhood watch and alarm systems can prevent crime. Commercial buildings without access controls or other security methods likewise become suitable targets. A capable guardian can be, like I said, ordinary people who can intervene or serve as a witness, or police or security personnel. From a corporate security perspective, for example, salespeople, truck drivers, and others who are on the road can become suitable targets when a capable guardian is unavailable and a motivated offender is encountered. So, with the assumption that these three elements are present in a situation, the theory is based on two central propositions. First, lifestyles and routine activities create criminal opportunity structures by increasing the frequency and intensity of contacts between potential offenders and suitable targets. And second, potential offenders likely assess the perceived value of a target as well as whether there are any available forms of guardianship or lack thereof present when considering when, where, and upon whom to commit their crimes. Routine activity theory differs from the other theories in that it is not primarily interested in identifying or specifying reasons for crime commission, but instead shifts the focus on the differing risks for victimization that individuals and locations possess. Additionally, routine activity theory not only provides insights regarding when, where, and upon whom criminal events are more likely to be perpetrated, but also explains how various aspects of individuals' lifestyles, for example, their routine activities, are correlated with the different patterns of victimization. So it is centrally interested in identifying, this theory is centrally interested in identifying that typical behaviors of persons and that characteristics of situations are associated with increased and decreased likelihood of criminal victimization. And as with any theory, it has its criticism. And a primary criticism that should be made here is the assumption that criminals are rational in their decision making. Like, that's the assumption that has to be made, that the criminals are actually rational in their decision making. They may not use the same rationale as a person implementing the security measures, right? They may not even be aware of the situational crime prevention techniques put into effect. They may be under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or for whatever reason, they may simply not even care about security measures. So that is our routine activities theory. These cover actually have the charts from the book. This is for the routine activities theory. Crime comes together when all of these three things are there. There's a motivated offender, suitable target, and a lack of capable guardians. And a quick summary overview. I know that was a mouthful of information on the theories of victimization, but this kind of brings us down and minimizes it a little bit. Victim precipitation, that's when our victims are provoked, whether passively or actively. And we have lifestyle theory, where the victims put themselves in danger by engaging in high-risk activities, such as going out late at night, living in a high-crime area, and associating with high-risk people. Deviant place, victimization risk is related to the neighborhood crime rates. And then our routine activities, where a pool of motivated offenders exist, and the offenders will take advantage of unguarded, suitable targets. So that summarizes them in a nice, neat little package. And the final topic will be discussions of how society cares for the victims.